Greetings, owners of fine luxury cardboard rectangles. I hope this Friday, that's the day it is today, finds you well. I am in pretty good spirits today, I have to admit. A lot of things have been going quite well. I mean, we're here to talk about the grossest Magic card ever made, essentially. But before we do that, I do want to just give a little plug to my lovely new lore channel that has had its soft launch. It's called Fantasy Geographic. I think I miscommunicated previously where I told you guys like, oh, my second channel, and some people thought that meant Hatcher. We're doing the lore videos over on Fantasy Geographic. We have 5 Karn lore videos already transferred over from this channel to that channel, good to go. The 5th one released today, and this weekend will be the channel's official launch with a brand new video. And we're already at over 1,000 subscribers over there. How amazing is that? And I got some other good news I'll share at the end of the video, all right? But let us dive into talking about the grossest Magic the Gathering card. Now, some people will be like, oh, you know what, I think Black Lotus, or I think these other cards are grosser. But to me, there is nothing grosser than Force of Will. And this comes from someone who absolutely, I really like the card Force of Will and hate it at the same time. It's beauty and it's perfection, and it's also abysmal grossness. So I remember when this card originally came out. I guess we should talk about what the card actually is, right? So it's 2 blue and 3. It's an instant, obviously. It's not going to work very well as a counterspell if it wasn't. Although, like back in the day, counterspells were interrupts. Let me interrupt you there to say no. That's how Magic used to work. But anyways, they're instants now. You may pay 1 life and exile a blue card from your hand rather than pay this spell's mana cost. Honestly, using the terminology exile instead of remove from the game is so much better, especially considering that you can still interact with the exiled pile to a degree, so it's not really removed from the game anyhow, but that's the old wording. So it counters target spell. You can pay a life and exile a blue card from your hand instead of paying its casting cost, and it costs 5 mana. Now, when this card originally came out, first of all, it was only printed at uncommon, okay? It was an uncommon card. Now it's mythic rare. And there's a reason for that. It's a very, very powerful card. I remember the first moment I saw a Force of Will was when I was standing at the front of my favorite local gaming store, going through the singles, and I just looked at it and I'm like, what's this spell? I'm like, oh, it's a counter spell. Oh, it costs 5 mana. That's gross. That's not good. And then I was like, wait a minute. Whoa, what's this about paying a life and removing a card from your hand? Now, the funny thing is back in the beginning of Magic, which is around when Force of Will originally came out, people didn't understand things like paying life or life gain. Like, there was way too much weight given to life overall in terms of cards that gave you life were very overrated. People like really liked cards that would crank your life without fundamentally understanding that gaining life in Magic is difficult. Losing life in Magic is easy. It's like life is like money in Magic. It's really hard to get it, and it's really easy to squander and lose it or have it taken away from you, right? So under those circumstances, people greatly misevaluated cards. So they would look at things like Force of Will and go, wait a minute, I'm going to lose a life and another card from my hand? That's terrible. But when I saw it, like, the card was worth basically the equivalent of $1. Like in Canadian money, it was like roughly about $2. And at the time, that was like my weekly allowance. But I spent it like snagging one of those Force of Wills up right away, and then proceeded to try and trade for other ones off other people. I didn't realize it was just an uncommon at first, so I bought the first one and was able to easily trade for the other ones. Nobody at the store I went to played Force of Will except for me. And it blew my mind because it's funny to hear from me, right? Because you guys know that like on Arena, I play a big beefy boy 250 card green deck, and I hate playing against counter Magic. I will concede and leave against those decks like immediately. I'm like, are you playing blue counters? I'm leaving because that's miserable. But when I was a kid, building decks to play in tournaments, and this is the big deal, like understand that while I say I hate counter Magic and I will concede those games, I don't concede against counter decks in tournaments, in events, things like that, because there's something on the line and it makes sense for somebody to bring a tool that's going to let them win to those kind of events, right? I don't begrudge people playing those decks in tournaments. I just begrudge them playing them casually. So when I played casual Magic with my friends, I would play a Tree Folk deck, a Dwarf deck, a big old green Crowworm deck. But when I went to tournaments, I had gotten scrubbed out my first 2 tournaments, just smacked around. I was so bad at the game that I lost to the best players and the worst players. Everybody just shook me around and threw me in the trash, right? Well, I developed this whole counterspell deck that actually got me pretty far. It won a lot of games. But the problem is getting to your counterspell mana. Unless you have an island and a Mox Sapphire or a Black Lotus or maybe some other Mox in your starting hand, you're not going to have the mana to cast a 2 casting cost counterspell, which leaves you very vulnerable for the very beginning of the game, for either 1 or 2 turns, depending on whether you're going first. If your opponent goes first, they're going to have 2 turns to do stuff before your counter spells come online and can be like, no, you can't do that. No, you can't do that, right? So Force of Will fills in that gap where all of a sudden, no, you can't first turn Black Vice me. No, you can't first turn Dark Ritual Hypnotic Spectre. No, I'm going to stop that first turn Savannah Lion. Like, those sort of threats that came out really, really early and made the game much harder to win just became easy as pie. I mean, you're talking, you've got counterspells, you've got Arcane Denials, you've got Mana Drains, you've got Power Sink, Spell Blast, you got Force of Will, you got Nevinyrral's Disc to wipe the board, you got James Tomes to keep drawing. Force of Will was the missing piece, and it's too good. It's too strong. Force of Will is busted nuts. Now, let's be real. Force of Will has become a necessity in terms of the oldest formats of Magic the Gathering, because you literally don't stand a chance if you don't have the ability to stop people from winning the game super, super fast, right? Like that has to happen. So Force of Will is an absolutely gross card. I genuinely believe it's the grossest card in Magic the Gathering. I don't care what anybody says. Being able to counter your opponent's spells while your while you're tapped out, just by pitching a card and paying a life, is insane. It's obtuse, it's overpowered, and we all know it is. Look at the fact that they've made this card mythic. Look at the price of the card. And look at the fact that when Wizards wants to come back and do the same kind of concept with, like, what was it? Like Force of Negation or something like that, where you have to pitch 2 cards to it. They're not willing to make cards on this power level because it's inherently unbalanced. It literally lets you completely sidestep the casting cost, and anything that lets you sidestep a casting cost has the potential to be incredibly strong. When sidestepping the casting cost just requires you to pitch another blue spell and pay 1 life, that cost is so easy to meet that the card can't not be gross. You know what I mean? It's just too powerful. Like, I love Force of Will because of how I used it back in the day, and because it's a great kind of like Valve. It allows you to play crazier stuff in the older formats because there are answers to it. I think that the ban list for the oldest formats would look different if Force of Will was not allowed, right? So this is a very gross card, but it needs to exist. Obviously not in any kind of standard capacity. Now, let's take a look at the artwork and flavor concept of this box topper Force of Will, because in all honesty, I love this so much. Everything about this is absolutely fantastic, all right? The flavor text saying amateur is it's so simple, but yet so fitting. And the artwork itself, you know what? I'm actually going to switch it up on the screen now to show you the full version of the artwork, because when you just look at it on the card, the way that she's standing with her hand upraised, at first I thought she had one of the funkiest swords I had ever seen. I was like, is she holding like a wooden sword that has like fish netting, like kind of waves coming off the side of the blade? Which I thought was actually a really cool concept for a seafaring style mage to be wielding. I thought that was a really cool concept. But what this actually turns out to be is a blue mage that is up in the crow's nest of a ship, all right? And we can see that like fire magic is raining down. Multiple spells have been cast. So you can see there are 4 different copies, actually 5, 6 different copies it looks like. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, technically 9 if you count the trails it looks like. 9 different copies of this spell have been cast. One of them very clearly is being countered, and in such a casual way. I love this. This is like, what is the term? What do they call those individuals? Like, it's got like a swashbuckler vibe, right? This is some sort of perhaps pirate, some other sort of seafarer, could be an elven being with like jade armor and like green leather leggings and everything. The coloration of all of the clothing gives a feel of kind of like moss-covered rocks underwater, or what, like this sort of like life, algae-filled water almost. You know what I mean? And up where her hand is, where the spell's actually starting to emanate from, because that's how I view it. The spell, the Force of Will spell, is emanating from her hand. And you have the blue magic that's like, this is the original wave of the blue magic that's there is basically the spell that's being exiled, all right? And it's being converted into this greenish sort of spell. Like, that's her stylized Force of Will. She's like color-coded it to match her outfit. And I love that level of vanity. Like, the idea of a planeswalker or really powerful mage that's a seafaring pirate type that has this level of ego where they're like, you know what, I'm going to be dressed in all this particular color, like this is my color, and my spells will even match that. And the way the magic is like kind of sinuously curling around her like a serpent, the spell is being countered, is bursting upon it. And I mean, she's not even looking in the direction of the spell, right? She's over here looking like this and just doing one of these like it's nothing. While at the same time, she's like lifted up her one leg while the spell just fires between it. So she's got this like lithe grace and this effortless effort where you look at what she's doing and it's incredibly powerful. She's casting high level magic while basically burning away a spell from her mind and infusing her own life force into it. And she's doing it all with casual grace and agility, and it comes across amazingly, dude. Oh, it looks so good. And the colors, you've got the red in the background as the ship has these fireballs, these spiked fireballs slamming into it, breaking it apart. The skies are red, and she's just there like illuminated by it. The greeny blue sort of coloration really stands out and gives what feels like a nice contrast to the whole thing. The flavor of this card is off the charts. I love it. I really want to know who is being depicted in the artwork. Is this a planeswalker? Is this a mage? Give them their own card, dude. Like, look at the flavor. It's just like this. This guy's raining hellfire down. And she just goes like this, amateur, and just dispels it like it's nothing. How amazing is that? So we've got the Grossest card with the most beautiful artwork. I love this so much. Let me know what you guys think about all this in the comments below. Go check out my other channel where we're doing all the awesome lore stuff. The launch of it is this weekend. It's gonna be great. I also, speaking of great, I have a package here that we're gonna open in tonight's live stream. And there's only one thing in this package. Do you know what that one thing is? Magic the Gathering. A bunch of Magic the Gathering. So thanks to Bo Falcon for sending that beauty out. We'll be cracking it tonight. Again, if you like flavor, if you like lore, you want all the goodness, come on over to my second channel. It's established at this point. It's going to be a good time. I'm going to keep mentioning it because not everybody who wants to be there has found their way there. Let me know what you think about everything I talked about in this video in the comments below. Thanks for coming by, my friends. I'll see you here, there, and everywhere. Like, comment, and subscribe if you want to help the channel. If you really love what I'm doing, jump on my Patreon. For now, I'm on up out of here.